Want to welcome you to the Lindsay and Learning channel with content designed to help English teachers just like you find balance in their lives and teaching practice. I'm Lindsay, a veteran National Board Certified high school English teacher and founder of Lindsay and Learning, and I am passionate about helping other English teachers. So I write on my website and create these videos to share practical feedback strategies, student-centered learning ideas, and many lessons you can share with your students. You can find all that here and more, so don't be a stranger. Be sure to like this video and don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell notification so that you can have a steady stream of English teacher inspiration and ideas. And lastly, I hope that you talk back to me by leaving a comment on this video once you watch. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite poems, Psalm of Life by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. There's an inspirational tone to this poem in a sense that one's life really can leave a mark on the world. When I read this poem, I am hopeful for the future and reminded of the need to act in accordance with my heart. Carpe diem, seize the day, don't waste your life. Longfellow is tapping into the universal human longing to have one's life matter. So let's go ahead and read and unpack this poem a bit. First, I'll read through. Feel free to skip this part if you are already familiar with the poem. But the heart of the young man said to the psalmist, "Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act, that each tomorrow find us farther than today. Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, howe'er pleasant, let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present, heart within and God o'erhead. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing o'er life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing, shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait." Oh my, did you get goosebumps? I always get goosebumps when I read that poem. Kudos to Longfellow for creating such an inspirational poem, right? It's important to note that this poem is a heartfelt message to the psalmist. This poem is meant to be read as a psalm. If you're religious, you know psalms to be songs, often of adoration or praise, expressing emotions to or about God, or thoughts about the psalmist's situation. There were psalms of lament, of praise, of thanksgiving, of pilgrimage, of victory, and of wisdom. Psalms overall express worship. They highlight the greatness of God, affirm his faithfulness and his promises. With that in mind, I have to ask who or what is being worshipped in this poem. And it seems that the overall focus is on the individual, on legacy, on life. In the psalmic tradition, this poem does highlight the greatness of present-day actions, of acting according to one's heart, of the power of independent thought. It does affirm God's faithfulness and that he's represented as an ever-present and guiding life force. God is mentioned in the 6 stanzas being overhead, and there are religious undertones to this poem as it focuses on life versus death, the importance of living life to the fullest. The beginning of the poem voices a collective dissatisfaction with life, calling out the belief that life is not to be lived and enjoyed, that one should live with a heaven mindset instead of viewing life as temporal and brief, and therefore not to be valued as much as eternity. The young man's heart calls his soul to awaken, because life is real, life is earnest. The connotation here is that life matters, however brief, so we need to make the most of it. One's soul is mentioned twice in the first 2 stanzas. The soul is the core of who we are. It's timeless. It holds our deepest longings and desires and identity. The narrator emphasizes that eternity is in our souls. We cannot ever really die, and the grave is not the goal of life. We're meant for more than ashes to ashes and dust to dust, because the physical body dies, but the soul lives forever. What a grand start to this poem, huh? We are not just mere humans on the face of the planet going about the motions of life. We are eternal beings, and we need to act as such. So, going on, the poem begins to shift. What then should we do with our days that the soul is here on earth? Should we seek to squeeze as much pleasure out of life as possible or be subject to life's painful moments? No, we are to be men and women of action. I will pause here for a moment and say that I believe the third stanza here is alluding to hedonism, ancient Greek for pleasure. Humans are motivated by pleasure or pain. The philosopher Epicurus is famous for emphasizing hedonism and suggesting that our lives are pain-filled when we live in fear of punishment or death. He writes, "Death is meaningless to the living because they are living, and meaningless to the dead because they're dead." You see echoes of Epicurus in the first stanzas of this poem. He believed that pleasure was happiness, that there were necessary desires, for example, philosophical conversation or maintaining one's health, which led to pleasure. And on the other hand, unnecessary desires, for example, the accumulation of physical goods and wealth, which led to pain. He advocated for a state of inner tranquility and believed happiness was to be shared. Like-minded individuals should work together to inspire each other's pursuit of happiness. Keep this in mind as we continue discussing this poem. Getting back to the third stanza, there's a direct connection to Epicureanism here in that we are not to live for pleasure or pain, but to find inner tranquility through action and forward movement. In the next stanza, the narrator pauses again to emphasize the temporal nature of life. Time goes by so quickly and art may endure, but we all have an expiration date. The muffled drums and reference to stoutness and bravery call to mind a battlefield. And in fact, this is called out directly in stanza 5 with a mention of the world's broad field of battle. These stanzas taken together seem to be a call to arms. We're not to simply march forward like cattle. Instead, we're to be heroes in the strife. If one loses one's life, he might as well die with honor and dignity, like a warrior. So, how do we fight against death, against the inevitable? Stanza 6 answers this question. We don't rely on the promise of the future, nor do we live in the past. We act in the present, the living present, the present moment, and we along with it are beautifully, wonderfully alive. The poem emphasizes the call to battle, to become action taker warriors in life through the repetition of the word act with a dash in between. There seems to be a reflective pause here, a subtle message that our action must be ongoing. After this comes the kicker, probably the most quoted part of this entire poem, one that never fails to make my heart skip a beat. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Here, I'm reminded of the idea that like-minded individuals are all in this together, a la Epicurus. It's interesting here that Longfellow chooses a common cliche word to describe our predecessors, the word great. Obviously, this is open to interpretation and abstract versus specific. It suggests that greatness is open to interpretation and also attainable by the common man. This is further emphasized by the use of us, referring to humanity as a whole, suggesting that anyone can make a difference and inspire others. Unlike the common word great, to describe the men who went before us, Longfellow chooses a more sophisticated word to describe the potential in our current lives. This word is sublime, and it means transcendent, with connotations of good fortune, flawlessness, and perfection. There is a slant rhyme between the words remind, sublime, and time. Remind is connected to the past and the dead, while sublime is connected to goodness in life. Time is the connecting thread. We can have an impact through our present day actions in order to make our current reality, our daily lives, sublime and full of meaning, to transcend the pull of death and our present day reality. If we succeed, we leave footprints. We have an impact. The fact that we are leaving footprints or our legacy on the sands of time suggests that it's easy to leave an impact, just like it's easy to leave a trail of footprints when you're walking on the beach. Again, the message here is that anyone can make his or her life not only great, but also sublime. Yet at the same time, this use of the word sands also holds a different connotation. Sands, from desert sand to beaches, are notably impermanent. Footprints on the beach wash away. Footprints in the desert are erased by blowing winds. With time and sands, Longfellow suggests an hourglass, hinting at the shortness of legacies and lives. Footprints can be lost to time, but they may be followed. Here we arrive at the author's message that great men are simply people who left behind footprints that last long enough to inspire those shipwrecked travelers who will come after us. May need a little bit of inspiration to keep their hearts going. This poem is a plea for us to use our lives to follow others' footprints and in the process, renew them for those who come after us. It's a chain of succession, and we don't want to be the weakest link. While inspiration and success are valuable and within reach, They don't make up the entirety of a person's possibilities. Overall, this poem is a poem of contrasts. Life versus death, action versus inaction, impact versus slumber. In the end of the poem, the call to arms is again one of action in the face of time and fate. The poet reminds us we can't expect instant success and we might not see results immediately, but that our success will be written as footprints on the sands of time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you make the most of your day wherever you are, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for even more content like this. See you next time.